Hey everyone, this is it, number 14 of the Celebrity Death Roulette, the Wheel of Misfortune. 14 episodes, and you know the story by now, but I'll tell you anyway. Troy found 10 names from findadeath.com. These are stories I wrote decades ago, probably. And randomly, 10 names come up. I have 2 minutes to say whatever I can, recall as much as I can, as much as I can. And if it's minimal, I stretch and I stretch. But it's always interesting because I don't know who's going to come up. So we've got 10 names. I've got 2 minutes on each name. So without further delay, I will start. Barbara Cartland. Wow. Okay, Barbara Cartland was the romance novelist who would write, she wrote like 500 books in her lifetime. She was so bizarre looking. She had like Grandpa Munster hair, and she always wore pink, but I mean, not a little bit. I mean, just like crazy taffeta pink. Everything in her house was pink. And her hair was like parted down the middle like Grandpa Munster. And she had this crazy eye makeup. And she was, her daughter was Rain Spencer. Rain Spencer was married to Princess Diana's father when he got married, or when he divorced Frances Shan Kidd. He married Rain Spencer. Rain Spencer is another one with the hair. Oh my God, she was one of those classic British women with her, just like, where did that come from? So posh. But Barbara Cartland, she just pumped out the romance novels. How did Diana describe her? Like her eye makeup was like two crows flying into the cliffs of Dover or something like that. That's how her eye makeup was described. And Little Britain, Matt Lucas did a great spoof of her where she was just writing, she was just, chapter 1. In the beginning, God created light, and it was good. And then the second one, she did, chapter 1, the end. And David Williams was the secretary who was typing it up. But yeah, Barbara Cartland, she's buried under a tree in her home where her mansion was. And Rain Spencer, Diana hated her too for the longest time. She called her that ghastly woman. Acid Rain was Diana's nickname for Barbara Cartland's daughter. But look up Barbara Cartland and look up Rain Spencer. Crazy hair. Chapter 1, the end. Lou Rawls. You'll never find another love like mine. And I know there's more. And of course, now I'm on the spot. But I'll tell you, Lou Rawls, as a human being, was terrifically nice, did a lot of charity work. He was Natural Man was one of his. I know that he's buried at Forest Lawn Hollywood Hills because my friend Roger was at the funeral, and there's pictures of the funeral on Find It Death. The crazy story, I went to his funeral actually. Oh, wow. I forget, what was he? I think he was wearing purple. A purple suit and a purple, like a bean, we called them beanies, a toque. And that's, yeah. And his wife and his daughter, Luana, got into this huge fight, and the wife left a nasty message on Luana's answering machine saying, you little, and said, you know what, I'm going to take all the money, all of it, every cent. It was just such a gross email, and Luana went, fuck it, and she just released it. And it's such a fascinating 911 or answering machine message. She's like, screw it, I'll do it. And I actually met Luana at a Home Depot store in LA. And she know me, or I don't know, she recognized me, or I forget what it was. We got into a talk, because I had a Lou Rawls shirt on that I bought at Lou Rawls' funeral. Somebody was selling them outside the funeral home. And we started talking about Lou, and I was gonna interview her or something, but it just never came to fruition. But Lou Rawls was, oh my gosh, I wish I could remember so much more of his music, because he was such a great voice. And as I said, he's buried in the same wall, I think, as Melvin Franklin from The Temptations at Forest Lawn Hollywood Hills, around the corner from Andy Gibb. You listen to Lana, and you listen good. Such a nasty message. Dan Blocker, the original bear. Barr. He was, well, everyone knows him from Bonanza. He was one of the Cartwright brothers on Bonanza, and well liked. Really big guy. I mean, he was just this really stocky guy. I wish I knew more about his career or even his personal life, but I'm a blank on that. I know several people who have met him at like state fairs, and when they were doing guest appearances as the cast of Bonanza, and everyone had some really nice things to say about Dan Blocker. I know that he lived on Muirfield Street at the corner of 6th, I believe, because right across the street was Antonio Banderas and Melanie Griffith's house, and Dan Blocker's house was actually bought by Rob Zombie, who had I think he has the polar bear from the Addams Family house, and Rob Zombie and his wife have moved since then, and by the way, Rob Zombie, when he did the Munsters, that was just the worst. No disrespect, but don't put your wife in movies. So anyway, Dan Blocker died really young, and he died, I don't know, for some reason I have an idea that it had something to do with diabetes. I think it had something to do with diabetes. Because he was like one of the first celebrity deaths that I was aware of. I think it was early 70s. And I just remember going to Inglewood Cemetery for some reason. And I know he's not there, but for some reason it kind of, I think I remember taking pictures of a clinic or something, or where he died, and it was near Inglewood, and for the story on Find a Death. But anyway, he was a celebrity, a really nice guy who died very young, very, very young. And Lorne Greene and Michael Landon and the Hilton Sisters. And I don't mean Paris and the other one. Violet and Daisy Hilton were, they always called them Siamese twins, and they weren't from Siam. That comes from the original Chang and Eng bunker. But that was just a nickname they used for co-joined twins. And Violet and Daisy Hilton were joined, I think there was like at the hip. And to see them, if you see the movie Freaks, if you see the movie Chained for Life, you wouldn't know that they were co-joined twins, because they just walked smoothly together. They knew each other so well enough that they knew one was going to do this, and they'd never go off in other directions. And one was married, which I found really interesting. But Chang and Eng Bunker were married, and they have like 20 kids, and they have like 500 grandchildren or great-grandchildren now. But Violet and Daisy were purchased, I believe, when they were born in Brighton in England. They have 2 birth certificates. I think they have 2 death certificates. And they were purchased and they were put on display. They were taken around to the circuses all over America. And I believe that they were sold in America. They had horrible people that brought them up in England and brought them to America. And I don't know if they got out of it. I heard Harry Houdini got them out of it somehow. And they ended up quitting the business and moving to North Carolina, where they worked at a supermarket. And one of them would, I think it was probably, I don't know which one was which, Violet or Daisy. One would work the cash register, and the other one would raise the produce. And they said, weigh the produce. And they say that some people didn't even know that they were like joined. And they died in this little house together. I guess it was pneumonia or fever or something. One died, and the other one died a while afterwards, and they're buried in a grave, something about a Vietnam veteran too. The grave they're in had something to do with a Vietnam veteran. Boy. They seem so nice. I'd love to have met them. Andy Kaufman. Okay. Andy Kaufman was a comic that I never quite got. He was more provocative than anything else, I thought. And I will say, when he was on Saturday Night Live and he did that Mighty Mouse skit where, he would play the Mighty Mouse theme, and he would just stand there and look like an idiot. And then when he came to Here I Come to Save the Day, he'd launch into this thing. And that was very funny. I'll give him that. But there's a lot of stories about him being just a live wire. I don't know if he was mentally ill. Something tells me he had some sort of issue like that. And there were stories about him at the Comedy Store. I remember being in the basement of the Comedy Store. Pauly Shore's mother owned it until she died. I don't know if that's still in the family. And I know there were some posters, an Andy Kaufman poster in the basement that I saw when I was down there. But he was on Saturday Night Live. He would go on to talk shows, and he was like, didn't he punch David Letterman or something like that? This is really dicky. And he would wrestle women. It was just all for, sort of publicity. And then he got cancer. And I think there was a video of him trying to get some kind of, he went to, I don't know, another country. And he went to get some sort of treatment where they were reaching in his body to get cancer out. It was some kind of ritual thing. I mean, I think there's YouTube stuff on this where they show that actually being done, if I remember correctly. And some people say, well, he supposedly died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And some people say he's, faked it, and he's actually alive. What did they say? He was like the unknown comic or something like that. But Andy Kaufman, just a bizarre person who, and it's just like you saw him coming, and you just didn't know what was gonna happen. And of course, Taxi, he was on that in Lotka, I think was his name is, on the TV show. But yeah, that's he's a live wire. Cleavon Little. Well, it's hard to say because, again, I know people by their classic roles, and it's hard for me since they've been so off the radar for so long that I don't remember much about them except for their classic role. And he was the sheriff in Blazing Saddles, which is the movie that most people point out nowadays as being the movie that couldn't be made today. However, for some reason, Blazing Saddles has breached that sort of line and is still acceptable. They will still show it publicly, whereas most movies of that era wouldn't, because it's so unpolitically correct. And they throw around the N-word a lot in that movie. And it was a Mel Brooks movie. It's a very funny movie. It's very funny. It's very unpolitically correct, and they got away with it with him. And I believe Cleavon Little, he was living in Burbank or North Hollywood, and that's where he died. And I believe, he did die of AIDS. That I remember, but I don't remember hearing much about his personal life. I don't. I wish I remembered more about his career. It's embarrassing that I don't. But again, they say they've been off the radar for so long that that's all I can recall. And I know there's so much more to him. But yeah, he died of AIDS. And gosh, see, if you say Blazing Saddles, that was really something else. I can't even say half of the things in that movie, because most of the things in that movie, because they're so bad. But, and I know so little. Was he cremated? Was he buried? I don't know. I'm sorry, Cleavon. I apologize. You're a funny guy. Very likable. What a nice looking guy. Nice smile. Whew. Some of those are tough. Alice Nunn. Okay, well, everyone knows Alice Nunn from the movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She played Large Marge. Tell him Large Marge sent you. She was the truck driver when Pee Wee Herman was chased away by... No. I forget how. She's the truck driver that left Pee Wee Herman out at the Wheel Inn by the Cabazon dinosaurs, which is torn down now. The Wheel Inn, Cabazon dinosaurs are still there. I forget what made her pick him up. I think I think that, anyway. And she was also in Mommy Dearest. She played Helga the maid. You know, when you wash the floor, you've got to move the tree, was Faye Dunaway or Joan Crawford's line to her in the movie. And she played housekeepers. I know that I've seen other things that she was in. She's been in she was in that too. She's been in, wild movies that you wouldn't expect. Like I did that thing on Anne Ramsey from the Goonies, who was in Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Runaway, and then she was in Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I mean, it's just shocking. And I know that Alice Nunn lived on Larrabee Street in West Hollywood, and I believe she had a girlfriend, and I believe she died in her home on Larrabee Street, and I believe she was cremated, and she is buried in a grave in Florida. So I don't know if Florida is where she was originally from, but a classic scene. That is like those are like core horror movie moments when Alice, tell them Large Marge sent you. Oh, and the twisting, wreck. and her face blew out like those dolls that you squeeze. I forget that. Worst accident I ever seen. And when they pulled the driver out of the twisted, burning wreck. But yeah. Tell them Large Marge sent you. It's a shame she didn't get to live on that for very long. Okay, this is Bernard Fox. Bernard Fox from Bewitched, who played Dr. Bombay, which is interesting because, like Paul Lynde, who was on Bewitched, I think Paul Lynde was in a total of out of the 300 Bewitched, she was only in 9 or something like that. And Bernard Fox was in, I believe, less than 20 as Dr. Bombay, but he's one of those iconic characters that everyone remembers. Emergency Come Right Away. I don't think he was British, although I think he had one of those, what they call mid-Atlantic accents that came out of nowhere, I think. And he was living in Tarzana when he died. I know that he is the only actor, he was actually in the movie Titanic, the one with that awful Billy Zane and Leonardo DiCaprio. And he was also in the original classic movie about the Titanic called A Night to Remember. And I met him a couple of times at autograph shows. I remember he was really nice. He'd do them with Casey Rogers, who played Louise Tate, and Sandra Gould, who was the second Mrs. Kravitz, the substandard Mrs. Kravitz. And he was on, was it an episode of Home Improvement or something like that, with he and some show where he and Casey Rogers blew up the Bewitched house. Was it Home Improvement? Some sitcom from the 80s where they made an appearance and they blew up the Bewitched house. I'm sure that really happened. Not in real life, although that Bewitched house is gone now because they tore it down because they have to destroy everything that's any good. But Troy and I did get to go through the Bewitched house, and I got to park my car in the driveway, which was cool to walk into my little dearly departed vehicle in the driveway of the Bewitched house. But Bernard Fox, I think he died in a hospital in Tarzana, and was he British? I don't remember if he's British. And Buddy Ebsen. Okay, Buddy Ebsen. Everyone knows him as Jed Clampett, Doggies from the Beverly Hillbillies, who such a bizarre relationships that cast had, because I believe Jed Clampett was Ellie Mae's father, and then Bea Benaderet, or Cousin Pearl, was Jed's sister, and Jethro was her son. And then Granny was Jed's mother, I think. So why they did a main character as being a nephew is such a weird thing. They just didn't make them brother and sister. It was just such an odd thing. But Paul Henning did those great shows. He produced Green Acres, which is a spectacular show, and I think he created Petticoat Junction. Anyway, so Buddy Ebsen, of course, very famously was originally cast as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. And he had to leave because they were using makeup on him that was like real aluminum in it, and he was breathing it in, and it coated his lungs, and he spent like a month in the hospital, so they fired him. That's why they got Jack Haley. But I do believe Buddy Ebsen is in it. He was like one of the Winkies, the guards at the witch's castle, and so he's still in some of the far shots, I believe. Somebody said he was in that one with the three of them, where the real Winkies pull up behind him and they got into the fight. Somebody said that was one of those was his. I got to meet Buddy Ebsen once. The Jerry Springer show was being done back when Jerry Springer was still, not so bad. And it was him and Donna Douglas and Louis Nye and Max Baer. And I got to hang out with those guys for an afternoon. And that was really something. And of course, Barnaby Jones, who, was, how lucky is that to get the lead of 2 series? But Barnaby Jones, and I think he did a cameo as Barnaby Jones in that 80s Beverly Hillbillies movie, which was a wild movie, really different. Aaron Spelling. Okay, Aaron Spelling, television producer, legendary television producer, The Love Boat, The Mod Squad, Fantasy Island, Charlie's Angels, Beverly Hills 90210, so many more, and I know that they were shot over on the lot over across from the Formosa Cafe on Santa Monica Boulevard, and because our little Terry Bolo, who worked with us at Dearly Departed Tours, who was also in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, did a ton of Love Boats. Where she was like hanging around by the pool in the background and stuff like that. She was a background player, and he was actually married to Carolyn Jones, who was Morticia Adams. That was the first Mrs. Aaron Spelling, and apparently when Aaron married Candy Spelling, his wife that he had the kids with, he was still quietly supporting Carolyn Jones, and so Candy wouldn't know it. And of course, his son Randy and his daughter Tori, very famously, when Aaron Spelling died, left billions of dollars to Candy Spelling, and she wouldn't give Tori any money. I'd love to know what that's all about too, because she was like living in a mobile home or something like that in the valley. So that there had to be a really good story there. But they built that famous house in Holby Hills. Prince Charles visited once. I remember that. And across from the Will Rogers, Armand Hammer golf course. And it was like 27,000 square feet. It had like an Olympic-sized ice skating rink, and very famously had the gift wrapping room. He's buried at Hillside Memorial Park. Don't know what, I think I've heard that Candy Spelling and Tori Spelling have mended their relationship. I don't know if that's true, but gosh, how much money are they worth? All those shows and all those reruns, insane money. Oof, game over. I wish, yeah. Well, those are fun. Allison Nunn, she's a good one. And they all were. They all had great stories. So, all right, that's number 14 wrapped of Celebrity Death Roulette. Thanks, you guys, for watching these things. I'm glad that you get a giggle out of them anyway. I wish anyway, thank you guys for watching very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention, and see you at some point soon for Death Roulette number 15.
You heard me.